written down that you like to? I'm going to move it up. So, yeah, before we blow everybody's ears out. Do any of you have any prayer requests that you have written down that you'd like for me to collect or anything? If we could pass them down this way perhaps, and I can just make one little swoop through this aisle since nobody's over there. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So Braden Lemon, right? Lemons. Braden Lemons. That's already on our prayer request. He is a 9-year-old child that's looking at having open heart surgery. I guess she's about to hand me that paper there. Are there any others? Okay, he passed away this morning. Yeah, thank you. You ever have some tests on your ears? Surgery on your ears? You gonna have tubes? All right, are there any others? I'll just come back here toward you. Thank you. All right, this is a request for Michelle Coates. Michelle Coates. It's expressed that she has cancer, so to be in prayer for her. Do we have any others? Yes, Miss Norma, I think, has some that she's getting written down. But while she is preparing hers, we will share with everyone that Miss Rosemary is at home. So she did make it home and everything today. For those of you that did not know, she actually had very high blood pressure. They discovered that on Monday. And so they went to the emergency room, and I think it was very late in the night before they actually had a room. They had started with tests. So she stayed in the hospital Monday night and Tuesday night, did stress tests and things today. They've gotten some results, and basically what they've done is they've changed her medicines a little bit, and they're conducting and waiting for the results. They're waiting for the results of additional tests. And so she is at home, and just wanted to let everyone know that. She appreciates your prayers. Are you ready now? Oh, all right. Thank you.
This is the last name. That's the first two names.
Lambrick. So Tara and Cora. Corey. Okay. And okay. And Corey. How? C-O-R-Y. Okay. All right. Okay. You want to elaborate any more? Just say pray for them. We're good. Okay. Doug Dendy. All right. Miss Elaine is not with us today. I think she was supposed to go and have a checkup or something this week too. Have any of you talked to Miss? It is for her eyes. Miss Elaine, have you talked to her, Miss Peggy, or has she already had that yet? Miss Elaine Palmer. Turn them in. Really? Okay, I'm going to put a star next to that. Thank you. From my understanding, it's supposed to be a Landmark and Boonville. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but that was the last indication of what I heard they were checking into. I think the hope was that that would be done before tomorrow, because I think Brother Danny has an appointment or something too, and so when are we going to be done? God knows that. Yes. Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah. Because I think y'all were trying to figure out what y'all are writing right there. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's okay, really. But, yeah, that's right. Well, she knows she's loved. My blood pressure? Well, we've been working on increasing my amounts of medicine. And, we're getting it all right. We're working on it. Thank you. Yeah, I think as soon as some of my schoolwork gets done, I'll be okay. So I'll be all right soon enough. All right, are there any others? Y'all please continue to be in prayer for Dr. Ruby. Well, Dr. Ruby, she's been sick for a while, and so they're running tests to see what her ailment is, but we're waiting some results. It's okay. All right. Are there any others? All right. Let's go ahead and open with a word of prayer then. Father God, we are grateful this day that you've given us. Lord, it's in these times in which we discuss the needs of those around us. God, that we know that life is something not to be taken for granted. But that God, each and every day is a blessing which you give us. Father, we pray that we will be people that are focused upon living our lives in a way that brings you glory and not ourselves. Father, we pray for the missionaries across the world as the doors of our access to the world seems to be becoming a little bit more difficult to go into. Lord, we just pray that you be with those who move their families out there in faithfulness, that calling. Protect them and be with them, Lord. Father, I pray that you be with each one, especially these that are in this enduring a battle with cancer and such things, Lord, that that even the treatments are difficult. Father, I pray that with each one of them, and for those who are enduring surgeries and all forms of ailments that we've discussed, Lord, that God, as you know their needs even before we ever mention them, Lord, we make our intercession because we know you are the great physician. Father, our trust and our hope and our everything's in you. And God, I just pray that be the same response through these trials of life that they are enduring. God, that they may just place their trust in you. That God, that they may be strengthened in knowing that you are sovereign and that you are the God of today and tomorrow. Father, I pray your blessing and healing in their lives as you so see fit. That God, that all of us may join in praise and worship of you, God. And I just pray that your name may be honored amongst all the people of this world. God, we just want to bring you the glory. Pray in Christ's name. Amen. Okay, so people can write down their prayer requests and then get in the groups and to pray for these people. Yeah, that's a great idea, Christy. That's a really good idea. I'm going to ask that you open your Bibles up to chapter 4 of 1 Corinthians. So 1 Corinthians chapter 4. Now, this chapter is going to follow this, which Paul has been talking about as we finished up, about the service of such individuals and making sure that none amongst them within their church has become conceited for any reason, that no man has any reason to boast about anything, that there's no one that has done anything to be boastful about, but that in fact that even one that even thinks that they're wise in their own ways, that it's actually seen that they're foolish. And so as Paul has kind of condemned some of those actions of what some of these people that have risen up in the church have been doing, he now brings focus back upon the ministry of those who are faithful for this time. And I think the whole thing here is to bring proper perspective, not only for the congregation, but I think even for those who are in the service of ministry. And the focus here is going to be concerning our position as servants to God. And we're going to break down this as we always do. We're going to begin in verse 1, and we'll go through verse 4. We'll let that be our first section here. Let a man so account of us as of the ministers of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. But with me it is a very small thing that I should be judged of you, or of man's judgment. Yea, I judge not my own self. For I know nothing by myself, yet am I not hereby justified. But he that judgeth me is the Lord. We'll stop there just real quick, because we see that next part when he says therefore, that usually signifies another addition to that. So, let a man so account of us that we ought to look toward these ministers. As Paul is including himself in this, he's saying of Apollos, of the apostles, and everyone, that allowed the people to look at us and to really to reckon us in our service, to make it, how about this, to look upon them with an understanding that their service is not to the church of Corinth. Consider this, that their service is not to the church of Corinth. And that would be in the same likeness of me saying that even in my position here, that my service is not to you. Now, let's pay attention to the point, what's happening right here. So let man so account of us, or give a reckoning of his service. It says, let a man so account of us as of the ministers of Christ. What he's doing is trying to place proper perspective of he and the apostles when he's talking about us. Of this group of ministers, which includes then and even beyond the apostles, to include Apollos and whomever else that's been building and teaching there, that their service is to Jesus Christ. We do this as servants to Jesus Christ. And that's important. And we get this word ministers here, and as we're going to show how he's going to elaborate on this. The word ministers here is different than ministers, what we've seen before, as even being one that was in the Greek diakonos. This one here is hupereste. Let me see. Let me look at it. Huperetes. Huperetes. It means an under-rower. It's a nautical term. Have you ever seen those movies where in almost some medieval times, long before they had engines and such things as that how a lot of these warships moved was by, at the bows, the very bottom of the boat there was this group of slaves that would have been there. And that they all would have had their hands on this big paddle that went out there, and they'd row. And then there would be one to the very front of them. It'd be like me standing here and be like, row, row, row. And then so at the command of this one that's before them, everyone's here in unison, and they're all having to do this in order for the ship to go. And then they could speed up the beat of it. They could make things go faster. And he could, by his tone, or sometimes they would even have someone playing a drum, by the beat of it, the rhythm, it kept everyone in order and everyone working together. And it was one unit that was moving it. That's what he's saying he is. And what he's saying right there is, I am as just another one of these servants that are moving after the direction of my Lord. He's showing that this is not my service. I'm just one of these servants that are just moving the ship. That's the word that he uses there, and that's that we gain here as being minister. And so it is a little bit different than some of the other words of minister that we've seen. So he's just trying to say that I'm just one that's taking the directions from Jesus Christ. So he's acknowledging who his master is. And so he acknowledges that. And furthermore, he says, and stewards. So this is the second word that describes him. Stewards of the mysteries of God. And so so a steward here, this word, we've seen it used before in parables of the master when he gave his possessions to the highest slave that was entrusted to him to manage the household of the king while he's gone, right? Y'all remember such parables? That he gives everything to this head servant in order to work through while he's gone on his trip. He comes back, and then this servant has to give an account of what he's done with what he's been entrusted with. That's what that word for steward there is. So here is one that has been entrusted, and what he's been entrusted with is the mysteries of this gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, we know that there's been an elaboration of that before when we studied Colossians. Chapter 1, that verses 25 through 27, kind of explained that this gospel mystery was that of salvation is come because the King, Jesus Christ, is here, and that comes in faith even to the Gentiles. That was the great mystery, the Gentile inclusion to this. And so he says here, so here we are servants of Jesus Christ, and we have been entrusted to work with what of this that he has given us, and there we go. That's verse 1. And he says, moreover, it is required in stewards that a man be found faithful. Can anybody recall, and I know this is kind of going back, can anybody recall of that parable, what happens when the master returns? Anybody share just a little bit? Anything off the top of our heads? Can y'all remember anything? What happens when the master returns after you can think of several parables. You can go over that of the ones of the parable of the talents and such things as that, right? There's several where people have been entrusted with something, servants have been entrusted with something. The master goes away, the master comes back, and then what happens? Yeah, they have to give an account of their service. So now when the master comes back, they have to give an account of their service. Well, while the master's gone, who do they give account to? Now, in those parables, it's no one. You notice that? That the servants were entrusted to do a work. The master went away, but when the master returns, that's when judgment and evaluation and accountability and everything's brought in. So is it for the believers? Now we can look at that in several different ways there. But the whole thing is, and what he's drawing to is, there's an issue amongst the church of Corinth. They're sitting around and judging each other. And then so the whole thing is, can a servant judge another servant? Can anyone give a good evaluation of someone else's service to a master? Not that it mean anything. But if you are a servant of Jesus Christ, He's your Lord, and it is He who you give an account of your service. And so he says there that whenever the master comes, that the steward must be found faithful. Means that the idea that carries that he is trustworthy and he is working on the task to completion as he was given. All right, anybody have any thoughts or anything you want to add to that? Anything else pop in your head? Yeah. That's that servant that was given or entrusted that. Yeah, it gets a little bit. Yes. I don't want to try to say that Greek word. Oikonomos. And it does. It means the house manager, and it is that person that's been used in those same parables. There. Yeah, which seems to be an issue too, right? Yeah. Which is a big issue. Oh, that's good. Good thing no one does that in the church today. That's just a Corinth problem. Not the 21st century church. No one puffs themselves up. Okay. Good. Now let's look at this now, moving forward to verse 3. It says, "But with me it is a very small thing that I should be judged of you, or of man's judgment." Basically, it really doesn't do any good for you to judge me. I really consider it of little value. I just don't think your opinion is of value of my of what I do, of my service. Now that's kind of, it's true. I mean, isn't it? That of what value is it if I esteem you or somebody? Now this is where problems emerge. If I start evaluating your service, and we do that. We all fall in this. We start looking around saying, well, man, this one over here is working real hard. This one's doing all these things, blah, blah, blah. Man, this person, they don't ever do anything. And we start going, well, what happened is a servant is evaluating another servant. And what Paul says at the very end, that doesn't hold a lot of weight. like okay, it's spreading rumors about people and stuff. Yeah, in a way, because well, that's the issue. That's one of the issues. Because right here it says that what happens is we get caught up evaluating each other, and then what we can do is we can boost people's egos up here, and we can tear people down here, and all the while that our opinions at the end is not the ones that really matter. Now, that's not to say that, yeah, we have to be careful of that, because we're going to encourage people and everything, but the fact is we are not giving an account in such terms as that, because we're not each other's master. Now, we encourage. I think that we can discern and help and do and such like that. But we just have to make sure that we never place ourselves in the seat as judge. And so there it goes. He even says, yea, in the last part of verse 3, yea, I judge not my own self. What does that mean? Yeah, isn't it funny how our self-evaluations are? And what do we compare ourselves to? Don't we immediately compare ourselves to someone that we feel is lesser than we? Immediately, a lot of times, that it goes that, whew, I'm not so bad, I'm better than so-and-so over here. Of what value is that? That Paul's like, hey, I'm not even evaluating myself there. That basically, the idea is that in that we can get a false sense of security of our service. We can really have a false sense of who we are. We can probably perpetuate ourselves as being really holy, especially when we start comparing ourselves to people outside of the congregation, or even people within, which is the problem here. He says, for I know nothing by myself. Now, I do have a revision here that says against myself. So for I know nothing against myself. Yet am I not hereby justified? So I can't think of any way that I've wronged or done anything else, but does that mean that I'm good? Does that mean I'm justified in everything? But look at what he says here. He says, but he that judgeth me is the Lord. Wow, so that carries you all the way back to what it says in verse 1. I am a minister. I am one of those rowers that's right in there with the servants of everyone else, and I'm listening to the direction of the Lord. I've been given this understanding of as a steward of this gospel mystery, and I'm going to carry out the work that's been left to me. And I'm doing all this work because I know at the end of it all, I stand before my master. Only he judges me, the Lord. And that's the only opinion at the end of the day that's really going to matter. And it's the only righteous and true judgment, isn't it? Aren't we glad that no man such as us is going to be standing before us? Who can righteously judge? Nobody. There's none amongst us that could righteously judge. And this is the separation when you look at Christ here from the rest. Verse 5, therefore, judge nothing before the time. So let it be of Jesus to discern who's faithful, who's doing as they ought to. It says, but judge nothing before the time until the Lord come, who both will bring to light the hidden things of darkness and will make manifest the counsels of the hearts. Then shall every man have praise of God. Look at this event that's here. This carries you to that 2 Corinthians 5:10, that bema seat of Jesus Christ. So we see that here it is, that Jesus Christ, that there's a day when there's that reckoning, if you will, in which when Christ comes, judge nothing before the time. The time is going to be whenever we're there before him, until the Lord come. And this is a specific event that it's looking at, the second coming. And when he comes, he is the one that knows all things. In fact, it says there that who will bring to light. the hidden things of the darkness. This goes all the way down to, so he's not looking at just what we do. So it's not just in our action. It's not that that we go and we do things out here in downtown for everybody to see, or all these different things that we do that everybody can look at and give praise to. But rather, he's looking down to the places, to the things that no one else can see, and he brings it to light. He makes it known, which means that darkness, he's just talking about to the inner part of who we are, whether it be in our heart, whether it be our mind. You know what he finds? The motives. He knows why we do the things that we do. He knows the inner thoughts of everything. Remember how we talked about, I think it's been weeks ago now, how there's that whole kill them with kindness things? You know, how people, some people, the motive is, I'm going to cause harm to you, so I'm going to be nice to you so you're in pain. Well, look, other people can see that kindness and say, hey, they're so sweet. Look at that. And then all inside you're like, I hope they hurt. You know, Jesus knows that. So he doesn't see just the kind action. He knows what the motive was behind it. And that's what it's saying here. He's the only one that knows. He's the only one that knows the true intentions of what we do. And he'll make manifest the counsels of the heart. This kind of goes back to a psalm. I believe it's like Psalm 118, maybe 98. Anyways, it is a psalm. It says, I'll make manifest the counsels of the heart. So there you go, the inner, deeper thoughts. And the thing is when it appears here that whenever we pass through that judgment with Christ, then you notice who gives us praise. That God praises you. There's like this time of rejoicing, that after we stand before Christ, there's this celebration that we get to enjoy. And these things, verse 6, brethren, I have in a figure transferred to myself and to Apollos for your sakes, that you might learn in us not to think of men above that which is written, that no one of you be puffed up for one against another. All right, verse 6. So, I have in a figure transferred to myself. Anybody have a different wording in your Bible to that beginning part of verse 6? Okay, so I have applied these to myself. Very good. Anybody else? Yeah, figuratively. Okay, good. Transfer to myself, okay? So what is he saying? I've been an illustration of this before you. I've been showing you how you should be. I've been living this before you. Of myself and to Apollos for your sakes. That you might learn in us not to think of men above that which is written. So there kind of becomes a place of what is written. Think of it in respect of what's here. Well, that has to go back to the Old Testament, doesn't it? At this point of when the 1 Corinthians is being written, that there's not, the Gospels have not been spread around, so that this has to be a reference then to what has already previously been written, which goes back to the Old Testament. So the whole idea is not how we are to treat people, kind of the idea of treating your neighbor as yourself, kind of idea, the thing of not showing favoritism and not doing poor things to other people, not to boast in anybody. These concepts aren't entirely new. Much of this appears in the Old Testament. So you already have a framework in which to work with, an understanding, a foundation of how it is that we are to act one with another. So don't go above that. And no one to be puffed up. What does that mean? Ma'am? Proud. Yeah, absolutely. Proud, boastful, conceited. Well, how does that person get puffed up? How does somebody get such an ego? No, not Jesus. Jesus is not the cause of that. People bragging about you. I'm sorry, Mr. Brendan, is that what you said? All right. Yeah, that when people start you can see it in people, right? I mean, you can see it in kids, and you can see it as they get older a lot of times. If that kid, that, I don't know, has had some success in sports or whatever else, or if the teacher notices one in the classroom and really talks them up a little bit, you can see and you can work with the confidence of kids. You can tell when kids are beat down, and you can speak good words to them, and you can see them changing their posture and everything else from that droopiness to actually holding their head up. And then you also see those that really need a little bit of building up there. And then you see the others that really need some deflating. Well, how did they get to that place where they need to be deflated? Because they've been puffed up. Because somebody has told them they're the greatest things in the world every day of their life. And it's some realization everybody has to get to that moms just say that. It's not necessarily true. They love you, but you're not. You kind of look around when they say, all right, I'm not the most handsome one around here. I'm not the best ball player, or whatever the case is. But a self-realization has to come. But for some kids, and again, there's adults that, man, you can tell they think they're God's gift to a place. Well, how does it get that way? Because people have told them they are. And so it is. And pride's a thing that can easily come on to somebody. It has to be kept in check. And that's what he's trying to do here, is eliminate that, because that puffing up happens a lot of times because other people keep saying it. You can tell someone that you're proud of them. Yeah, you can. You can say that I'm proud of the way you're doing things and everything here. You can encourage them to continue in that right conduct, to continue to do right. Well, I wouldn't say I'm proud of you at that point. Well, again, a child has to be trained right, and that's a teachable moment. All right. Look at verse 7 then. He says, "For who maketh thee to differ from another? What hast thou that thou didst not receive?" So who made you any better than anybody else? And what do you have that wasn't given to you? Now, sometimes we can look at that in the scope of the physical things here, and we can say, you can tell when people that didn't have anything, and then next thing you know, they receive this huge inheritance, and then they walk around like the pride of life. I mean, head high, everything else, and like they forgot who they were, but I'm not that anymore, and I can't associate with you anymore. But consider, and it's easy to see that in physical things, but what about the spiritual things? What about the spiritual? What gifting has any one of us received, or what gifting do we have that wasn't given to us? We do have gifts. And that's the whole thing is, but in each gift that every one of us have, even though they're different, there's not one any greater than the next. But what is the truth is, it's all needed for the body. Now that chapter comes a little later. But that's where this is going. So there's no reason for anyone to be proud of who they are. They should be grateful for the giftings they've received and acknowledge where it comes from. So why dost thou glory or proud as if thou hast not received it? Now ye are full. Now look at it. Now I'll tell you this verse 8 on through, man, there's some really good things through here too. I enjoy. It says, now ye are full, and now ye are rich. Look at the description of the church of Corinth, these believers in there. You are full, spiritually mature to the fullness. You can't get any better. You are rich. You have reigned as kings without us. And I would to God that ye did reign, that we also might reign with you. What's the problem here? Some of these people are proud. They've elevated themselves up, and some within the church have placed themselves on like a spiritual throne as to look down on the others and to rule over them and to give judgment as to what everybody's doing. And he goes, look, you're a king. You've arrived. But look what he says about him. For I think that God hath set for us, the apostles, last, as it were appointed to death. For we are made a spectacle unto the world, and to angels, and to men. This word here for spectacle is a word that we get for theatron is the word. So this is the only place in the Bible that it's used. And it puts you in the mind of the Colosseum. And what he says is that by being placed last, he's actually talking about his position, his lowly position, and how despised that they are. That it's as though they were assigned to death row. And in the terms of that day and time, that meant as though they were marching into the Colosseum to go before the crowd. Remember kind of that view of how we talked about in Hebrews and stuff, almost like that Colosseum view, where he's going into the Colosseum not to run a race this time, but as like a gladiator, as one that has to go out there to die. So he's not ruling as a king. He doesn't view himself as someone ruling over and pointing fingers at everyone, but instead because you know that these were only those people that it was made a sport, right? Wasn't that a sport for people? That was the sport of the Roman culture. So only the servants and lowly people, as the wealthy people were always people around for those that watched this, but I feel like that we and the other apostles have been led into this arena here in a position to die. And most of them do die in such a way as that. They're all dead. But isn't it the martyred life, kind of the life put upon the apostles? John being the only one of the apostles that perhaps died by natural means. Now he speaks in the perspective of the Corinthians. He says, and he's using this, and there's a contrast here, but he says, we are fools for Christ's sake, but you are wise in Christ. We are weak, but you are strong. You are honorable, but we are despised. Even unto this present hour, we both hunger and thirst and are naked and are buffeted and have no certain dwelling place. As labor, working with our own hands, being reviled, we bless. Being persecuted, we suffer it. Being defamed, we entreat. We are made as the filth of the world, and are the offscouring of all the things unto this day. Let's look at verses 10 through 13, and I'm not going to go into the depths of all these, but we're going to put emphasis on verse 13. But look at the view. These people that think that there's something that's amongst the church of Corinth, they are the wisdom. They are the honorable. They are the ones that are rich and just the most blessed as they could be. And their view of the apostle, because remember, a lot of this he's having to explain himself and justify who he is before them. But they're looking down on apostles and everybody else. Could you imagine that there'd be some that would rise up and then oppose from within the church, would oppose Paul and the apostles? Yeah, part of the issue was the elevation of one over the other. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. The better baptism. That's right. That's good. But there he goes there, and he's talking about what an honorable position and everything that they are. But then I want you to look over here at us. He says that even that we look at the physical. Verse 11 is the physical problems they endure. We hunger, we thirst, we are naked, we don't even have a place to stay. That's the position of this missionary team. He says, and we labor, working with our own hands. So remember, we're not going to be a burden to you, so we're going to work ourselves. We're going to work so that it's not being provided to us. So we work with our hands. And then being reviled. This idea of being spoken poorly of. Even the word defamed in verse 13, it carries the word of blasphemy. That slanderous words have been placed toward them. That people look at them, they scoff at them. This is the nature of our service, that people just are, there's constantly something that's going on. In fact, the main, this kind of has a build-up to this one place here that if you would underline, circle in your Bible, that part, verse 13, that it says that we are made the filth of the world. That ought to just stick in our minds. He's been made the filth of the world. And the word that's being used to describe the filth was in the practice of the most despised person of the community or the city. So it would be like this. In a town, if everyone would come together and discern whose life was the least important. Who could we get rid of? And it's like the people would take a vote or something of that nature and then choose one. Well, here's the thing. The actual word behind this actually speaks of a practice that was done where they would actually take a criminal and put a criminal in prison and keep that one there for the purpose of sacrifice to the gods in the event that a plague had come. That's all wrapped up in the meaning of this one word. It's this practice that is done. So that's why he uses this word. Because the people would have discerned this person is worthless. The most despised person in all of Corinth. Put them in prison, leave them there. It'd be the idea of they ain't worth nothing but rotting. In fact, just save them, keep them alive, so if a plague comes, if famine comes, that we can appease the gods by pouring their blood out. And Paul says, that's this guy. In some versions it just says that I'm the scum of the world. But who are some of these people in the church of Corinth? In their own minds. Here they are acting as though they are kings, rich and full and everything else, and Paul's like, I'm a sacrifice. Scum. Even the word, that next word there, kind of also, the off-scoring, it carries a part of the same word that's used for filth. I'm about to let y'all out. This is the last verse I'm going over. And so it carries a second part of that in the Greek. And it actually is as a filth that is thrown out as trash. So the idea of that is the off-scoring is dumping out the garbage. So you think about how you value garbage. You know, what is it that the old saying is? Well, one man's garbage is another man's gold or something. I don't for treasure. I knew there was something. I just couldn't get it all together. Well, there you go. He said that was the view of his ministry. That's where we're going to stop tonight. This is the whole thing is in view. So they are viewing themselves richly, and yet their view of him is of very poor value. But this is in the perspective of they looking at him. It can do that. That can certainly happen too. All right, so we left off in verse 14. When we stand there, we'll be dismissed in prayer. Would anybody like to close us in prayer this evening? Yes, sir. Thank you.